Alright. So, the divisive Chris Chibnall era of Doctor Who is wrapped up. Jodie Whittaker is no longer the Doctor, and the future's looking bright with Russell T Davies returning to write the 60th anniversary and the seasons going forward under a new production company, Bad Wolf. And I do think that sadly people were pretty distracted from Jodie Whittaker's final adventures in the TARDIS, due to the announcement of Russell T Davies taking over as the showrunner and the return of David Tennant to the role of the Doctor for the 60th anniversary specials. Jodie Whittaker's run as the Doctor was already pretty divisive, and I think a lot of people wrote it off after the very kinda underwhelming ending of the big event status season Doctor Who Flux, and the pretty mediocre Legend of the Sea Devils. And yeah, I kind of almost agree. I haven't really vibed much with Chris Chibnall's run on Doctor Who. There's been a few glowing, shining moments. I think he did a really nice job with the villains, such as the Master, Ashad the Lone Cyberman, the Daleks. I think that's where Chris Chibnall really shines, is these very over-the-top cartoonish Monster Mash episodes. The problem is that there's not enough of them, but also the writing, even in these better episodes, has a tendency to be just kind of low quality. Over-reliance on expositional dialogue. I mean, for Pete's sakes, you could watch some of these episodes as if they're a podcast. Pretty poorly defined and underwritten main protagonists, and a seeming disregard for continuity to even a performative extent. See Timeless Child. Throw in unsatisfying resolutions and some questionable morals, and yeah, you've basically got the worst of the Chris Chibnall era of Doctor Who, and sadly a lot of these problems dog even the best episodes of his run. But with that said, the show has been very successful in intriguing and engaging me with its long-running mysteries, and with Power of the Doctor being the finale to the entirety of the Chibnall era, I guess I was kind of intrigued to see where things were finally going, as there were a lot of, Pandora's boxes, I guess, that the Chris Chibnall era of Doctor Who decided to open. So I was pretty excited by Power of the Doctor. Not only that, but the trailers looked really cool. We were seeing returning companions. We were seeing the Master, played by Sacha Dhawan, who absolutely stole the show in Series 12. We were seeing the Daleks again, the Cybermen, Ashad, the Lone Cyberman. And regardless of my overall feelings towards the writing quality of the Chris Chibnall era of the show, I feel like I owe it to see how it ends. So, this is my review of Power of the Doctor. I'll be getting into spoilers a little later down the line, but I will warn you when. A warrior appears and stops you in your tracks. To progress to the rest of the video, you must meet the following criteria. Have you subscribed to Channel Pup for more Sonic content and other topics? You have? Excellent, young one. If you enjoy the video, also remember to hit the like button. And now for an optional quest, young squire. Channel Pup is a very poor man who does not have a lot of money. If you want to help him to turn that around and invest more in his own content and ventures, you can do so at the Patreon link in the description below, as well as that there are perks. You may now proceed with the remainder of the quest. So, Power of the Doctor. It's not only the finale to Chris Chibnall's run on the show, so naturally it's going to be a little sentimental over itself. Sure, I can forgive it for that. It is also the centenary special for the BBC. So what you've got here is a little omelette of Doctor Who history, I guess. And in many ways, Power of the Doctor is what I was hoping for from the 50th anniversary special, Day of the Doctor, back in the day. You've got more old faces joining the crew with Ace and Tegan, and as far as the villains concerned, they got the A-listers out to play. The Master, the Daleks, and the Cybermen, which I definitely would prefer to see in some form of anniversary special than the Zygons. But I don't just want to poo-poo on Day of the Doctor. It was made under very different circumstances, and for what it was fine. What we have here, though, is much more what I would have in mind for some form of anniversary special for the show. Like I said, I think Chris Chibnall is at his best when he's leading with his villains. They're his best foot, and to put them forward at the very front is a good move, and this is definitely a villain-centric episode. Not only that, but it is very cartoony in tone. Sacha Dhawan already played quite a hammy take on the Master, but here it's dialed up to 100, and he's still fantastic in this role. He steals the show. We've got a big villain team up with him, the Cybermen, the Cyber Masters from the Timeless Children, and the Daleks. So having these three larger-than-life presences as the antagonist for this episode was a great move, and it's one that really suits Chris Chibnall's writing style. He's at his best when he's just like, hey, we'll just make it over the top, kooky, cartoony, and yeah, this works really well. And I feel like when you've got that more cartoony tone, I can kind of let the more negative sides of Chris Chibnall's writing style, or the ones I don't like so much anyway, such as the more expositional dialogue and some of the plot contrivances and stuff, I can let that slide a lot easier if the episode is committed to having a larger-than-life tone. Like, I can make more allowances for a more ambitious story. However, yeah, Power of the Doctor is still definitely a lower standard of writing than what I would really like to see from Doctor Who. It doesn't quite strike up the balance as, say, Russell T Davies did in, say, the season 4 finale, where you got all the companions coming back and the Daleks and Davros and the reality bomb. Writing quality definitely loses the tug of war with ambition here. Not only that, but this is quite a self-contained story for this finale, in spite of wrapping itself in Doctor Who lore. This is a love letter to the show's entire history. Yet the story itself, the big threat at hand here, it's pretty self-contained. It's its own little story. And I do like that because it means that the episode doesn't feel overly bloated, well, as bloated as it maybe would have felt. At the same time, it means a lot of these big revelations from the Chibnall era of Doctor Who just kind of fall to the wayside. Like the Timeless Child, for example. If you were expecting a resolution to that, or a definitive answer to the Doctor's history, or how this impacts the Doctor Who lore going forward, you're not getting that here. That's just not happening. Timeless Child doesn't really factor into this. The Flux, having decimated much of the universe, still not really resolved. And no, the Doctor is no more interested in unearthing her memories, like the entire Chris Chibnall era kind of built up to, than she was at the end of Doctor Who Flux, when she just chucked it in the TARDIS. The episode is definitely more interested in giving conclusions to its characters than it is in giving conclusions to the stories throughout this series. Again, it's a tug of war between story and character, and it doesn't really manage to strike the balance, but at the same time, I do like what they did with the characters. And with that, you end up with kind of like a Doctor Who No Way Home kind of situation, with lots of returning faces from the classic series. Like I said, Ace and Tegan are back. You've got Kate Lethbridge Stewart, you've got all these classic Who villains. It is, like, it's very much Doctor Who No Way Home, but it is kind of just plagued by the problems that, yeah, they do plague every other Chris Chibnall episode. So this one kind of just wings it on nostalgia and just sheer energy alone. But I gotta say, I really enjoyed this episode. It's cartoony, it's over the top, it appeals to the things that I want to see from Doctor Who. Big villain showdowns, massive battles. Now, in terms of how these characters factor in, the Master is definitely the main villain, and kind of rightfully so, because man, Sacha Dhawan is just incredible in this role. He's easily my favorite Master yet. I do think the Daleks were just a little underutilized in this episode. Ultimately, the Daleks and the Cybermen play lackey to the Master, and that's a little uncharacteristic for the Daleks, but I do think they kind of justify it well enough, I guess. Like, this was probably only a temporary team-up, but nothing that was really done with the Daleks here feels like it couldn't have been done with the Cybermen. And then there's the Cyber Masters, which again, they feel like an afterthought. They're only really at the start of the episode, and then they inexplicably stop regenerating later on. Dan is completely sidelined for the majority of this episode. However, I will say, I actually really enjoyed Yaz in this episode. I think Mandip Gill turns in her best performance yet. She definitely gets the most to do that she's ever had. The returning cast were nicely handled, and yeah, this is overall a fun episode, and if you're a fan of Doctor Who's history, there's something in here for you. It's not perfect, it's not really a greatly written episode by any means, but the enthusiasm is absolutely there, and I felt that same enthusiasm while watching it. So yeah, it's a very Chibnall end to a very Chibnall era, I guess, and like, take from that what you will, but it's an episode that gets by on its ideas and its energy, and yeah, I find it very difficult to dislike that. If you're a long-time fan of the show, this probably has a few tear-jerking moments in there for you. And I feel like for those that have kind of been pushing the narrative that Chris Chibnall has been trying to destroy Doctor Who to push a specific agenda, and is treating Doctor Doctor Who as a casualty of his cultural warfare. Well, one, shut up, you're insane. For two, like, while he doesn't always get it right, the man clearly loves Doctor Who, and it absolutely comes across in this episode. Also, just a weird thing though, like, I kind of noticed that showrunner exit episodes, they usually suffer from some kind of time constraint or something like that. I mean, like, I don't know about the end of time, but I gotta say that's, you know, not one of Russell T Davies's better works. Twice Upon a Time was definitely not the note that Stephen Moffat wanted to go out on. This right here, I gotta say, is probably one of the better showrunner exit episodes that I've seen in the modern run. Because I feel like it's just saying, forget about it, we're just gonna do everything we want to do, throw a big farewell party. And it's an episode that just gives Doctor Who a warm goodbye hug, and welcomes its new returning showrunner with a big smile. Overall, my opinions of this episode are pretty complicated, but my feelings towards it, I liked it. No, this is not a redeeming finale for the Chris Chibnall era if you have the problems with it that I have, but it sends this era off on its own terms, and I absolutely respect that. So, let's move on to the spoiler section of this video. I said this was basically like the Doctor Who No Way Home situation, because you got the returning villains and the returning supporting cast, but yes, you've also got Doctors returning as well. And it's done much more in line with what I wanted from Day of the Doctor. Like, you've got a lot more returning Doctors in this episode, and they're not ones that we'd seen so recently either. And no, it's not like all these different Doctors come together from different timelines. There's a lot of hologram stuff in there, a lot of sort of internalized, introspective stuff in there, but we got David Bradley as the first Doctor, Peter Davidson, Sylvester McCoy, and man, it was also so good to see Paul McGann again, because I think this marks the first time we've actually seen him in the main series. I'm not counting Night of the Doctor, that was like an online short kind of thing. This is his first time actually being in a main episode. That's awesome to see. The fact that Chris Chibnall decided to bring us that is really, really cool. We've also got Jo Martin returning as well. And while she's not necessarily a legacy Doctor, I thought she was pretty well utilized here, and I was just happy to see her again. I'm always game for more Jo Martin as the Doctor. This time opposite Sacha Darwin's master. So good to see. I think some of my favorite moments here were seeing Tegan and Ace getting closure with their respective Doctors. And that's not even all, as at the end, you know, Graham comes back and he assembles like a Companions Anonymous group with all kinds of different companions from Doctor Who's history, including Joe Grant, Ian Chesterton, the list goes on. This was a really nice way of letting companions that didn't necessarily get closure with the Doctor actually get some closure with the Doctor. Not only that, but their Doctors. I do have to say, I wish we could have maybe seen a little cameo from Tom Baker maybe, but he did get Day of the Doctor, so fair enough. It's kind of interesting actually what Doctors didn't appear, although I'd have to say it wouldn't be quite as meaningful seeing Doctors like Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi again, as we have seen them pretty recently. Obviously Christopher Eccleston's probably a no-show because of his opinions of the BBC, and that's completely fair enough. And John Hurt, rest his soul, that can't happen. Same goes for Patrick Troughton and John Pertwee, although it would have been really cool to see Sean Pertwee step into the role, but I'd definitely rather see him get to be his own Doctor, and I think that's how he feels too. Okay, look, this was a packed episode. I'm not going to ask him for every single Doctor, but at the same time, there is one Doctor that I haven't mentioned yet, and that is the Doctor that Jodie Whittaker regenerates into. Before we get to that, I just want to say I think the exit of Yaz was handled really, really nicely, but I am disappointed with how the sort of love interest between the 13th Doctor and Yaz was treated in the end. I feel like they would have been better off just not even touching that, because it kind of comes across as bait more than anything else. I was hoping they'd do gay stuff, okay? Like kiss or something. Just do some gay stuff, man. But they didn't do any gay stuff this episode. In Eve of the Daleks, they teased some gay stuff. Same goes for The Legend of the Sea Devils, teasing a little more gay stuff. And they didn't get around to any gay stuff. That's kind of... I guess we'll get the true woke era of Doctor Who with Russell T Davies, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Seriously, if you're gonna tease gay stuff, do gay stuff, man. If you're not gonna do gay stuff, don't tease gay stuff. You gotta go all the way. You gotta go all the way. I think this is probably why we got it under the Bad Wolf production company rather than the BBC this time. Bad Wolf don't have to answer to them quite as much. Full creative control for Russell T Davies, our omnipotent, progressive overlord. So yeah, the farewell between 13 and Yaz, it was fine. Hope they do a little more gay stuff, but hey. But then, the regeneration. Jodie Whittaker regenerates into the next Doctor, but probably not the one you were expecting, or maybe the one you're expecting based on the set leaks from the 60th anniversary. Yeah, retro regeneration. David Tennant is back as the Doctor. Also, just want to say the regeneration effects look really good in this episode. I mean, like, a lot of the special effects here look really nice, although I have to say, questionable green screen at times. But that regeneration was easily visually one of the most stunning regenerations we've had yet. Interesting that the clothes regenerated this time. I guess David Tennant didn't want to wear Jodie Whittaker's outfit, and fair enough. Now, David Tennant has returned a few times since his initial departure in 2010. Obviously, we had Day of the Doctor, but there was also the whole Time Lord Victoria stuff, loads of audio stuff. Like, the guy never truly stepped away from the role, so I did not expect myself to have the huge grin I did when the Doctor regenerated back into David Tennant. I felt like a kid again. For a brief moment, it felt like 2008 again. And then we got that little trailer for the 60th anniversary special, and again, I felt like a kid again. This is crazy. But also, we get a little glimpse of Ncuti Gatwa in the role as well, and I'm really excited for his performance. I think he's a fantastic casting choice. And hell yeah, the future's looking bright for this show. So, overall, I liked Power of the Doctor. I think the future's looking bright for the show. I'm optimistic. Thanks to Chris Chibnall, Jodie Whittaker, all the creative team behind the show, all the supporting cast members, everybody, for, you know, delivering a pretty interesting run on the show, even if it wasn't necessarily to my liking. I think there was definitely a lot of merit here, and it's, again, cool to see another vision for this show. I think this run really kind of taught me that it kind of doesn't matter who the showrunner is in some ways. Like, just enjoy the ride. Like, because at the end of the day, every era of Doctor Who ruined somebody's childhood. And sometimes you land on runs that you like, and sometimes you land on runs that you don't. But on a whole, like, you know, when all is said and done, I had fun, you know, I enjoyed the ride. Now, I do intend on doing a full retrospective of the entire Chris Chibnall era of Doctor Who over on my Pup Picture Show channel, so watch that space. Now that it was said and done, I feel like I could properly talk about the era as a whole. But now, I rest. It's late in the day, everyone in the house is asleep, and now, I rest. I say, you've made it to the end of the video! Congrats! No, but seriously, thanks a bunch for watching. And just now, I'll be extending a special thanks to the patrons in the $10 tier, who are the astonishing Adam Myers, the ever-so-kind King K, the limitless legendary Ray Ray, the marvelous Mr. SP, the spectacular Sergio, and the thunderous That Jordo, which is more evidence that I've really got to stop doing these alliteration adjectives. I gotta find another way to make you guys feel special. What an amazing and generous bunch of people. Thank you guys so much for your support. And if you want to join the ranks of these amazing people right here, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Guys, these are not the easiest times in the world financially, so every little bit you folks are donating is doing wonders. I really would love to be able to do YouTube as a proper fully fledged career someday. It might just be a pipe dream, but maybe you guys can prove some people wrong. But of course, if donations aren't your thing, then, well, it means plenty to me that you just hit that cute little subscribe button over there. I didn't mean hit that way. Well, that's me done for the day. Thanks a whole bunch for your support, and have a fantastic day. I'm gonna see you so soon.